Hi, America. Last Tuesday, November 8th, we came together as a nation and made a decision that will ultimately affect the next 4 years of our country and beyond. And whether you like it or not, that's the decision that has been made, and that's the decision that we have to live with for the next 4 years. And I want to talk about a couple things, but I wanted to wait until a lot of the yelling died down before making this video. It's no secret that the Republican and Democratic Party have inherently different values. That's just a fact. Social issues, the economy, foreign policy, we disagree on a lot of things. And one of the biggest issues that our two parties disagree on, and an issue that I believe to be the most pressing of our time, is the reality of climate change and our consumption of fossil fuels. I don't want to come off as biased, and I don't want to sound like I'm pushing a liberal agenda, but we can't escape the reality that the majority of Republicans do not prioritize our effect on the environment. Many, if not most, Republican politicians still do not accept the scientific fact that we are affecting our climate in a negative way because of fossil fuel emissions. Whether this be due to nearsightedness, corruption, or blissful ignorance, I don't know. But it is a reality. And starting January, not only our president, but the majority of our House and Senate will also be Republican. And again, I'm not saying this is a horrible thing. I'm not saying Republicans are the bad guys. I'm just saying that the priorities have shifted dramatically. The necessity for our country to make the switch from non-renewable resources to renewable resources such as solar and wind power to fuel our economy and fuel our homes isn't going to be seen as an immediate issue. And Donald Trump could be the best thing that ever happened to this country as far as fixing our economy, our foreign policy, and countless other issues. I don't know. We have to wait and judge him by his actions instead of his words. But we do know that he is not going to be good for our climate, for our future as a planet, and for environmental issues across the board. So right now I'm looking at an America First energy plan on DonaldJTrump.com. So these are direct notes from Donald Trump's website. Make America energy independent, create millions of new jobs, and protect clean air and clean water. I like that. We will conserve our natural habitats, reserves, and resources. We will unleash an energy revolution that will bring vast new wealth to our country. That's all fantastic. That's the first bullet point. He also wants to declare American energy dominance and strategic economic and foreign policy goal of the United States. Also great. Here's where it gets rough. Unleash America's $50 trillion in untapped shale, oil, and natural gas reserves, plus hundreds of years in clean coal reserves. And economically, this makes sense. In the short term, this would be great for our economy. It's going to be very cheap. Realistically, it's a short-term solution. We are going to run out. That's why they're called non-renewable resources. And by the time we burn all of our non-renewable resources, it's going to be past the point of no return. Greenland's going to be gone. We're going to have massive rising sea levels, and our future generations are going to look back at us like, why did you do that? The website also mentions clean coal reserves, and clean coal is a bit of a misnomer because there really is no such thing as clean coal. There are cleaner ways to burn coal, but in the long run, it's still going to be very, very bad for our environment. It's like saying, I'm going to set you on fire, but this fire isn't nearly as hot as that fire. It's still fire. Okay, so moving on to the next bullet point here. Become and stay totally independent of any need to import energy from OPEC cartel or any nations hostile to our interests. Yeah, on board. That's great. Open onshore and offshore leasing on federal lands. Eliminate moratorium on coal leasing and open shale energy deposits. And again, this is the opposite of what really needs to be done. We need to be pulling away from our dependence on non-renewable resources instead of fueling the addiction that we already have. All right, next bullet point. Encourage the use of natural gas and other American energy sources so that we will both reduce emissions but also reduce the price of energy and increase our economic output. Yeah, same thing as before. Good for our economy, bad for our future. Alright, final bullet point here. Rescind all job-destroying Obama executive actions. Mr. Trump will reduce and eliminate all barriers to responsible energy production, creating at least 500,000 jobs a year, $30 billion in higher wages, and cheaper energy. And that does sound so tempting, right? I mean, and the wording here is so tricky because here he talks about responsible energy production. At that first bullet point, he talks about protecting clean air and clean water and conserving our natural habitats, but all the other bullet points negate that. And creating 500,000 jobs a year, that's fantastic, but we can do the same thing by switching to solar, creating solar plants, investing more time and energy into creating better batteries to store solar energy, building and designing solar farms, manufacturing electric cars, and constructing buildings like the Tesla Gigafactory. There are so many job opportunities with green energy that aren't talked about. It's ridiculous. This is interesting. Okay, so in key issues here, he says that energy costs the average American household $5,000 per year. As a percentage of income, the cost is greater for lower income families. Yeah, You know what's free? The sun. So yeah, right now it just sounds like I'm complaining, but what I really want to do is offer solutions. We have to remember that just because we are run by these government officials, we're not living in a dictatorship. This is a democracy. As much as the government runs us, we also run the government. If we, as citizens of the United States, can use our voice and our actions to convince our government that we need to make the switch from non-renewables to renewables, then eventually they will listen. When it boils down to it, politicians do work for us. Here's a great example. Think about how many politicians were anti-LGBT rights up until the general public decided that, hey, if two people love each other, they should be able to get married. As soon as that became the popular consensus, boom, gay marriage is legalized. Marijuana usage was considered as bad as heroin or cocaine 10 or 20 years ago, and now it's being legalized in many states. It didn't happen because the powers that be woke up with an epiphany one day and said, hey, we should legalize marijuana. It happened because we as a country decided these laws are absurd for the amount of damage that this drug actually does. And there's really three things that we can do here. We can use our dollar, our voice, and our vote. As much as fossil fuel companies make it difficult to do, look into investing in solar energy, look into investing in wind energy, electric cars. I know these things are expensive, but in the long term, it'll be so worth it. Do your research at a local level and see what companies nearby can provide your home with solar energy. See if you can even afford to have solar panels on your roof. Even saving money sends a message. Turning off lights and electronics that you are not using. If you're not in a room, don't have a light on. That seems like common sense, but a lot of people forget it. This puts money in your pocket instead of the pockets of utility companies. And that money can then be used to invest in getting solar panels on your roof. Again, it's not cheap, but it's worth looking into. And while it is more expensive in the short term, it will in the long term make more sense economically, and it will make more sense environmentally. Second, use your voice. If you're a broke-ass college kid like myself who can't afford to buy solar panels, then there's plenty you can do just by speaking your mind and educating those around you. For example, I really want my family to make the switch to solar, so I've actually convinced my parents to let us get a free estimate to see if we can actually install solar panels on our roof. Talk to your employers about ways that you can make your company more energy efficient and more green. If there's any lights that stay on overnight where you work, then try and get those to be shut off. If there's a way that you can make solar energy a possibility in your company, talk to the powers that be and try to make it happen. Convince them that it needs to happen. Talk to your local businesses, talk to your school, talk to anybody. If you work for a company or a university, switching to solar isn't just a good choice for the economy and the environment, it also is really good for PR. Talking to your local government is also a great way to get things started. Never underestimate the power that you have on local government. If you and 20 other people that you've convinced to help you can go and talk to your governor or your mayor, they'll hear you. They will hear you, and they will know that in order to secure their political future, they'll need to do what you want. And you don't have to be an adult to do this. If you're in high school or middle school, you're a future voter, man. That means a lot to politicians. And by the way, don't just be a protester, because yelling and chanting and holding up signs is one thing, but try to be a salesman as well. Go there with a plan, go there with reasons, with statistics, and that is the way to get people to listen. And the final and possibly most important thing that you can do is use your vote. And I'm not just talking about once every 4 years. You can't just vote for president, governor, and Congress and then sit and wait and cross your arms like this when things don't go your way. There's things that you can vote on, bills that are trying to be passed constantly. There's actually a really awesome app that I recommend to everybody called Countable, which shows you what bills are currently being voted on and allows you to vote yay or nay on certain issues. It's really fantastic. It also keeps you up to date with current political news. This app just makes the voting process much easier, and it gives you the ability to get involved without leaving your couch, which is very nice. So there's that. But anyway, the point of this video is to just kind of give a little bit of hope here and say we can't just give up on our environment because our government's different now. We can still do so much, and we still have to do so much. So take action. And let's make the world a better place. These next 4 years could be great, but it's really up to us to let that happen. Thank you for watching, and bye.